Charlie Appleton's wife. I think you all know Charlie. And I'm going to talk to you mainly for beginning about TNKR. That is the group that I went to visit last November with a young Baylor student by the name of Junha Kwan. Junha is an honor student at Baylor, and he's a friend of my daughter's. And the way I got started with this was I had never been on Facebook much, and I didn't really know much about how it worked. So I had to sort of learn on my own. And wait a minute. I had to learn on my own, and in learning, I had to help Junha have some funds to go. I'm having trouble with this video. I'm sorry. I had to help Junha a little bit with his finances by following him on Facebook. And in following him on Facebook, I got to know the group he was going to visit and to be a translator and an interpreter and a tutor at TNKR, the group I am now affiliated with in Seoul, Korea. Now, Junha went with his girlfriend, Alexis, and she was on a mission trip to Seoul with him, and she stayed with a host family there. And the first thing I was encountered with was Junha being at the DMZ, you know, the demilitarized zone in Seoul, and he was petitioning for a man by Mr. Hwang Cheo. And Mr. Hwang's father was abducted to North Korea in 1969. His plane was diverted to North Korea when he was on a business trip to Seoul, where the Olympics were held, the little town near there. So that has now raised a lot of awareness about his father, trying to get his father back. He hasn't had much help from the UN. So he has asked for help from TNKR, Teach North Korean Refugees English. So when Junha was over there, I messaged back and forth, checking with him, learning about the group, and I've become very passionate about the things they do. And I'm going to tell you a little bit. I can't get started until I tell you a little bit about the co-founders, how the group got started. They've celebrated their 50th anniversary this year. Casey Lartig Jr. is the co-founder of Teach North Korean Refugees English. Casey has a master's degree in English from Harvard. He's a very well-educated man, and at one time, several years ago, he's a black man from Houston, Texas. And he was with the Cato Institute many years ago and was one of the think tank analysts for educational purposes in Washington, D.C. Now, Casey Lartig helped develop with a coalition of people what they call the school choice program. I don't know if you all are aware of that. It's a voucher system in D.C., and it's now more or less all over the country. There's, big talk about it. But anyway, this was a group for underprivileged, this choice program. It's a program for underprivileged children for parents to be empowered for those children to be able to go to better schools, because they were, underprivileged, and it empowered the parents to help with this choice. Well, not only because of that, but because Casey Lartig had, by the time he was 12 years old, had read 3 different books of Frederick Douglass, the abolitionist during the Civil War. And so he was very interested in freedom of choice and opportunity, like his program in Washington, D.C. Well, he got tired of the cocktail party environment of D.C., and he decided that he would go to Seoul, Korea. He wanted to make a difference. He says everybody has their passion, but you can't go everywhere, but you can help those in one particular place, and he chose Seoul, Korea. While he was there, when he first arrived, he met Yoongu Lee. Yoongu Lee is the co-founder with Casey of Teach North Korean refugees English. Well, he met her at some type of a human rights thing and that was why they got together and decided that they would start this program to teach North Korean refugees English. Now, the refugees hear about them because of the fact they have the freedom of choice and opportunities, because all over the world come many volunteers to TNKR to freely. They're all volunteers. It's an NGO, which is non-governmental organization. Now, I never usually mention a whole lot about the volunteers, but I will go down the list of those that I have met. When I went over because I wanted to meet them, because all of the following Junha, I sort of stuck when he went back to school to Baylor. I went with him during Thanksgiving. He has relatives in Seoul, as well as his mother has an Italian restaurant in Dallas area. And so he's bilingual. He speaks Korean fluently, and he speaks English fluently. So therefore it was easy for him to be a volunteer and help in translations when he went to work with the NGO. As I said, Casey Lartigue Jr., he doesn't have very many rules, but one is when the students are learning English, we don't want you to speak Korean to them. We want you to teach them English, because they won't ever learn if you don't. We don't want them to be asked for what their lives were like in North Korea, because they were horrible. He said, we just want to offer them opportunities to succeed in South Korea. And the North Korean refugees are really sort of treated like homeless people. They have trouble, and they cannot actually survive very well and succeed and fit into the community if they don't learn English. Many of them want to have better teaching positions, so they go on to school. Some of the people just want basic grammar. Others want to be in a situation where they can speak about what they their lives in North Korea. And some of them want to write books. And 3 of the refugees have wrote very famous books. One of these refugees' name is Yinmi Park. Yinmi Park was a young girl, about 13 years old, that was, of course, the people in North Korea are totally brainwashed. They know nothing about the outside world. And so Yinmi escaped when she was 13 with her mother. Usually they're all starving to death, and that's why they want to escape. But she escaped. She was sold into slavery and marrying a Chinese farmer. And she was very much abused along with her mother. As a matter of fact, her mother was raped in her place when they were trying to escape. So she said that it was unimaginable there. And she talked about in a speech in Dublin that went across Facebook. Casey helped her write that speech and helped her how to deliver it. And she talked about when she was 9 years old that her mother's best friend was executed for watching a Hollywood movie. And the children are encouraged to go up front so they can stone the people for the first time who are being executed. It's really, really awful. And there are 3 generations of Kims. There is Kim Jong-un, who you know is the now dictator. There was his father, Kim Jong-il, and then there was the grandfather, Kim Il-sung. And so little Yinmi said, she thought they could read her thoughts, the regime, or Kim Jong-il, I think was where she was. Well, anyway, they escaped, and young Yinmi decided she would learn some English, get better at her speaking with TNKR. They had heard about the group, and again, they have the freedom of choice to choose their own tutors to teach them English. And they've never been empowered. They always were in North Korea. They were always not allowed freedom, not allowed choice. And so this was a very important thing that Casey Lartigue wanted to do, was allow this in his program. Now, I was going to mention the various volunteers that come from all over the world, and many of them translate in their own language for TNKR, so people will be aware all over the world of what North Korea is like. One is Karen Hanna from Germany. She's gone back now. Young-min Kwan, who is absolutely everything to TNKR. He's an interpreter. He manages all sorts of things. He helps Mr. Wang with his campaign to bring his father home. And he also is in his last 2 semesters of law school at Georgetown University. All of these people are very intelligent. And so then there's Tony Doken Morgan. He is, they call him King Coach. He coaches the North Korean refugees to speak in some of the contests that they have. They may not want to write the books, but they want to tell about their lives. Some of them cover their faces because they don't want their families in North Korea to be executed, because they'll go back 3 generations for this to happen. Then there's Dave Fry, who's a Marine. Dave even has posters that have been sent from North Korea that fall on his in his backyard. they're pictures. They're good artists in North Korea, and they're pictures basically of Trump and all these different people, and they sort of laugh about it. They don't really think he's going to do much. But anyway, Steve Chai is another volunteer with TNKR. He doesn't volunteer much now because he's busy with his work, but I met him when I was there because he had planned to come to see me a couple of years ago when I was here. Then there's Peter Daly. Peter Daly is a professor of English at a women's college in Seoul. He's been with them a long time, TNKR, and he is a man with many interests. He has a band, too much. He plays. He's just an extraordinary guy. Then there's Janice Kim. And Janice is the academic advisor to TNKR, and she is one who has sessions where they inform the volunteers of, what the rules and regulations are. They also have matching sessions that she is in charge of, where they match Korean refugees to their tutors, and they have resumes, so the refugees get kind of excited that they can choose somebody, and sometimes they'll have 4 tutors to 1 refugee. So they get very excited about this, and they feel very empowered. And it was funny because Yoongu Lee, who is the co-founder, she's a little South Korean woman. Casey says she's shy. I didn't find her shy when I was over there at all. She just is the organizer. And he says he's a man of the moment. So they make a good team together. And this little Yeonmi Park I was telling you about was on talk shows with Casey in South Korea 4 or 5 years ago. She's been over here quite a while, went to Columbia University, is now married, just had a new baby. Just glad the baby's born free, is what she said on her post. Then there's Young-min Kwan, again, Mr. Huang. He is the man whose father was abducted, and he's still trying to get him back. And recently, 3 of the people, Casey, Peter Daly, and Young Min, who interpreted at the National Assembly, trying to put pressure on China to help this man's father come back, because a lot of the people who were on that plane did come back. They were allowed to leave many years ago, but not Mr. Huang's father and several others. Then there's Ken Ohm, I believe it's pronounced, who is another volunteer. He's an ambassador there at TNKR, and he was a soldier in the North Korean Army. Wonderful man. He, too, is married and just had a new baby, so I'm sure he's glad his baby's born free, too. But he was a soldier. And so, therefore, he does a lot of broadcasting, because most of these people, most of these refugees, are inclined to want to help their people. That's all they're interested in, is helping their people. Now, I'm going to go on. I think I've mentioned, also I did want to say that Casey Lartigue is a columnist with the Korea Times. And so he he has blogs where he interviews North Korea refugees about what they think is happening and going to happen in North Korea with this new regime, and what is going to happen with the nuclear. You've heard about the nuclear missile problem, and of course the summit coming up where Trump will be meeting and the Seoul Korean president, Mr. Moon, and hoping to put some pressure to stop the missile launching and to try to get involved in making some peace so the two Koreas might be together. Now, when the refugees escaped, they're escaping they don't escape over the border that's there at the DMZ. They can go through Laos. They can go through Thailand. They can go, and Yinmi, I think, was in the Gobi Desert when she escaped with her mother and carried a knife so that if she was caught, because they're pursued, unbelievably so, by the North Korea agents, and they were going to cut their wrists and die before they would go back. That's how severe it is. Of course, in the meantime, Kim Jong-un is up there feeding his troops, feeding his elite, which they call them, in Korea, while the rest of the people starve to death. And they truly do starve to death. This is a picture, and I love this, because this is a picture of the peninsula of Korea. And if you see through the middle, it's very dark. I like to consider it from evil to light. On one side is China, very bright. On the other side is Seoul. And in the middle is the very dark North Korea peninsula. And again, while the people starve, Kim Jong-un is having a feast. The defectors, there are 30,000 defectors since the mid-90s, 1,127 defectors in 2017, and most of these who escape are about 70 to 83% are women, because they seem to be able to have the money to manage to go to escape and pay these brokers to help them, and they usually betray them. The man, of course, who Trump applauded, if you remember at his speech, if you saw his State of the Union speech, this young man is very, very popular with our group. He's a friend. He escaped on a crutch, drugged himself, had his leg was amputated when he fell across a railroad track trying to feed his family. And so his father made a cane for him, and not a cane, but a crutch. And he drug himself across, and everybody in TNKR was very happy about that. Now, my daughter, Lori, in Waco, a young man, Junha, the boy I was telling you about, that's a Baylor student, said, he calls me Gregory. That's what my grandkids call me. He said, Gregory, I will take you to meet these people because I know you want to go. It was the last thing on my bucket list. So during Thanksgiving, he went with me, and I met him in Dallas, and it was a 15-hour flight. But he was my bodyguard. He could speak Korean. He was just a delightful young man. And, of course, he had worked with that group 2 years before, and that's how long I've been associated with them. And so anyway, we flew together on a straight-through flight, and I had enough timeshare points with the Hilton timeshare that we could stay there for 5 nights. Of course, he doesn't have a lot of money because he's a student, so I tried to do all I could to help him out, and he got to see his relatives for Thanksgiving, and I got to spend my time at the TNKR office, which he said, Gregory, don't spend your whole time over there. You need to see Seoul, and Seoul is beautiful. And, of course, the co-founder, Yungu and Casey, and Youngmin Kwan and Junha, that's all of us at the airport. They came to meet me. And these are pictures of the hotel, beautiful hotel, and in my room was a lovely window. That's the window at night, looking over Seoul. This is in the daytime. And then Junha wanted me to see Seoul. So we went to Chinatown, And we bought souvenirs, had lunch there. It was really nice. And then this is really cute, we had a picture made, which was free, at one of the malls there, of us dressed up in the traditional. It's really cute. There's me and there's Junha. He even made what they call a profile picture of that one with us together. Of course, this is a picture of Casey and Yungu. I will say this. They are very, very poor. It is amazing to me what they have done. Their only income for that group is through their fundraisers, and most of those are volunteers. They have no support anywhere else but from their volunteers and friends. So they have a real struggle, but I believe they would teach those Korean refugees on the street corner if it was they're that passionate and dedicated. When I arrived, they had a wonderful party for me. They're all my little friends, and Junha took me up there. It was kind of a surprise, I think. And there's Casey and all the refugees that I got to meet that I dealt with on Facebook all of the time. It was really exciting. I mean, this is exciting to me. Sometimes it's almost surreal. I think, did I really go over there? Here I'm back, and I'm going on back and forth, talking to them and all this. But I keep thinking, is that really real? This is the dinner that they had for me, and that is the little fellow that has the V sign. I don't know if you can see it. That's Ken Oam, the little soldier refugee that just had the new baby. There's Tony Doken Morgan, who is the volunteer. He's a professor at La Crosse in communications, and he's on sabbatical over there until July, helping and coaching the refugees with their stories. This is Dave Fry. He's a character. Dave was the one who was the Marine and all the. I have pictures of those little posters that came across his backyard and on his deck. This is a picture of me I have several pictures you can look at of Janice Kim, the academic advisor, and Tony and Dave, and here's Cody Smith. Cody Smith is another volunteer, and I'm there with Junha with Casey and him. This is a picture of me. I wanted to meet Mr. Huang. He is the dearest, sweetest little Christian man you will ever know. He's the one trying to get his father back from North Korea. So I met with him. Young Min Kwan was our interpreter, and he came back just to talk to me about his hopes and dreams that he would have his father back. And the most amazing thing of all, which I will show you, is when I was at my daughter's after this Winter Olympics. When I was with my daughter, it was exciting because I have it on the floor, a USA Today article. It's a half a page long about where Mr. Huang is telling the world about his father, hoping that enough awareness will be raised that they will send his father home. And he's been very upset with China. China, they haven't done much to help the refugees. They repatriate them. If they come over, they aren't even considered refugees. And they repatriate them, send them back to North Korea to go to labor camps, to be tortured. They have abortions if they are pregnant. It's the most awful thing you can even imagine. Now this is cute because this is the stairs going up to the TNKR office. They're very humble. They made it look really good in their pictures, but actually it's very small. And there is this concrete. OSHA would hate it. They'd really be over there. That I had to climb to get to the office. They have a good security system, but the office is really very small. This man, Jin Sung wrote a book called Dear Leader. It's probably the most famous bestseller ever. He was up in the elite. He was a propagandist. They're all propaganda. And he escaped. It's like I won't even go into detail. It's like, he's on the board of directors, by the way, at TeamKR. But his story is like a spy novel, just getting out. They followed him, and his life was miserable. This is just a picture of one of the speech contests. Now, this woman, I'm getting down to the one that everybody wanted to know about, the SD cards that are being smuggled in. This woman right here, her name is Jean Park. She's a very good friend. All of us somehow got connected when I was learning. I guess they must have all friended me or something, but they're all my friends now, and we have this little community. Miss Park is a North Korean refugee and activist in the UK. They've also had articles. Yang and Sharon Jang are two of the refugees who have told their own stories. Yoon-hee Park was one who went with Casey and Yoongu to Indonesia, where they won. Casey's won all sorts of awards, speeches. He works himself to death. They both do, but he really, really is passionate too. And Yoon-hee went with them to Indonesia to the Asian Liberty Forum, where they were finalists in this award, and she again told her story. They hadn't written a book yet, but I'm sure they'll get around to that too. I have another little friend who is a translator. Her name is Jasmine Fosse, is the way I remember. She speaks 6 languages, really 4 fluently. She's from Finland, and we message all the time and even do the Skype thing where I can talk to her and see her. She loves her dogs, and she's precious. She's going over next month to meet the group, and that's going to be really exciting. Then Rachel Park is a girl from Maryland who's South Korean, and she went over when I did so she could meet Casey again. She met him once, and to meet me. They brought all these wonderful gifts. There's a little cellist mother. He spoke. He's a little handicapped boy who's a famous cellist in Seoul, and she came to meet me. Pete Daly came. They all came to meet me. It's very exciting. And then again, Casey has an aunt, Annette Lartig Chambliss. He has a big family in Houston, and they're lovable, Christian, wonderful people. And she's a friend of mine on Facebook. Sometimes I'll model her paparazzi jewelry. She loves to sell, and we have a good time. And Casey, when I went over there, said, "Oh my gosh, Eben even is a friend of my aunt's." On Facebook, I took a bracelet to him she'd given me. And I'm hoping I have touched on everybody, because I wouldn't want to leave somebody out. And if you ever want to see any of their YouTube videos, you need to go into TNKR News on Google. If you can Google, it's just big caps TNKR and then news. And they love comments and likes, and you can see all of the videos that they've ever done, talking and all of these nice things. They went on a heart-to-heart kind of a presentation where he and Yoongu told about the organization. It was really, really nice. And anyway, I know that Kim Owen, as far as opinions on what's going to be happening, Ken Owen, the soldier I was telling you about, came through yesterday and commented, and of course he's the one in the know. The name of the article was North Korea to suspend nuclear missile test site. And he came back, and his response was, not surprised, but generally a positive proposal. So they don't trust much about what he's going to do. But I think most of them feel like now with all these SB cards that now the elite, and that's Pyongyang people, don't have the confidence in even the military, in Kim Jong-un's regime that they did. And because of that, if there is a war, they truly believe that a coup would occur, and they would have another person there, and maybe the people will have some freedom and some food. Who knows? Now, this man is the fellow I was telling you about, or you had asked about. His name is an organization of North Korean community, and he is he's the one who sends in with the community the SD cards, and which people buy, send in over 100,000, his group. And as a matter of fact, they even had a program on Channel 8 a couple of years ago, and I believe that probably was no chain with man smuggling those things in. I believe there's one last thing I would like to do. and that is, Casey wrote a book. Well, he actually co-edited a book when he was with the Cato Institute. It's called Educational Freedom in Urban America. That was the school choice program, Brown versus Brown after half a century. And while I was there, Casey was so sweet. He gave me this book along with, there's another refugee by the name of Sunju Lee, and he wrote a book. He was a street boy in North Korea, and he escaped. And he wrote the book, and there was a copy waiting for me where he said, hope spring, basically hope is never lost. But this is the nice note in the book that Casey gave to me of the one that he co-edited, and it's on the cover. Dear Eben, thank you so much for coming to visit us at TNKR. I can't begin to express how happy